Welcome back. We are still on the topic graph of quadratic functions. In the previous video, we learned how to use the graph of a quadratic function to find the maximum or the minimum value of the function. In this video, we are going to apply what we studied in the previous video to solve some questions. The first question is, complete the table for the relation y is equal to x squared minus 2x. Then we use the points in the table to draw the graph of the relation y is equal to x squared minus 2x. C says that from your graph, find the minimum value of y is equal to x squared minus 2x. We have already learned how to draw the graph of this relation. So you move to the last part of the question, finding the minimum value of y is equal to x squared minus 2x. This is the graph of the relation y is equal to x squared minus 2x. We are being asked to find the minimum value of y is equal to x squared minus 2x. As we learned in the previous video, when the curve has a u-shape, the function will have a minimum value. So you see that here we are being asked to find the minimum value. The question could have said we should find the least value. So the minimum value or the least value is the same thing. Okay, we are going to use this graph to find the minimum value of y is equal to x squared minus 2x. We learned from the previous video that the minimum value is the y coordinate of the turning point. So to find the minimum value, we first have to locate the turning point. As you can see, the turning point of the graph occurs here. To get the y coordinate, we will trace it to the y-axis. So we trace it to the y-axis to get the y coordinate. And from my graph, the y coordinate here is minus 1. So from the graph, the minimum value of y is equal to x squared minus 2x is minus 1. And as we can see, minus 1 is the smallest value of y that we have on this graph. Let's move on to the next question. We are being asked to form a corresponding table of x and y for this relation over this interval. Then after that, we use the points in the table to draw the graph of the relation y is equal to 4 plus 5x minus 2x squared. Then we will use the graph to find the maximum value of 4 plus 5x minus 2x squared. So we will move straight to the last part of our question since we have already learned how to draw the graph of this relation. This is the graph of the relation y is equal to 4 plus 5x minus 2x squared. We are going to find the maximum value. As we learned in the previous video, if the curve has an N shape like the one we have here, the function will have a maximum value. So to have maximum value or greatest value, the question could have said we should find the greatest value is the same thing. Okay, so we are going to use the graph to find the maximum value of y is equal to 4 plus 5x minus 2x squared. The maximum value is the y coordinate of the turning point. So the first thing you have to do is to locate the turning point. The turning point occurs here. Then you trace it to the y-axis. So we trace it to the y-axis and we read the y value there. On my graph, the y value here is 7.5. So from the graph, the maximum value of y is 7.5. And we can clearly see that because as soon as the curve gets to this point, it changes direction and starts moving downwards. So the y values decreases again. So from here, the y values keeps on increasing until it gets to the maximum value. Then from the maximum value, it starts decreasing again. So on this graph, the maximum value of y or the greatest value of y is 7.5. Let's look at the next question. We have been asked to complete this table for the relation y is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 3. Then we will use the points in the table to draw the graph of the relation y is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 3. After that, we will use the graph to find the least value of y is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 3. The least value is also the same as the minimum value. So let's go to our graph sheet. This is the graph of the relation y is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 3. We are going to find the minimum value or the least value. As we learned in the previous video, if the graph has a U-shape, then the function will have a minimum value or a least value. So we are going to use this graph to find the least value or the minimum value of this function. To do that, we will first have to locate the turning point, because the least value is the y-coordinate of the turning point. On the graph, this is the turning point. Then, after we have located the turning point, we will trace it to the y-axis. So we trace it to the y-axis to get the y-coordinate there, which is -4. So from the graph, the least value of y is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 3 is -4. And we can clearly see that the least value or the smallest value of y on this graph is -4, because the curve starts from here and the y values keeps on decreasing as the curve moves downwards. So it keeps on decreasing until it gets to this point. Then it changes direction and it keeps on increasing again. So we can see that the smallest value of y or the least value of y is -4. So from this graph, the least value of the function is -4. Let's look at the last question. Complete the table below for the relation y is equal to 2 minus x squared. Then we will use the points in the table to draw the graph of y is equal to 2 minus x squared. After that, we will use the graph to find the greatest value of y is equal to 2 minus x squared. So let's go to the graph sheet. This is the graph of the relation y is equal to 2 minus x squared. We are looking for the greatest value of y is equal to 2 minus x squared. Remember that the greatest value is the same as the maximum value. And the curve will have a maximum value because it is having an N shape. The maximum value will occur at the turning point. So let's identify the turning point on the graph. It is this point here. So this is the turning point. We will pick the y-coordinate at the turning point. The y-coordinate at the turning point is 2. So from the graph, the greatest value of y is equal to 2 minus x squared is 2. And we can clearly see that the greatest value is 2 because the curve starts from here, and as it moves upwards, the y-coordinate keeps on increasing. It will keep on increasing until it gets to this point. Then it changes direction and the y-coordinates will decrease. So it means that on this curve, the greatest value of y you can have is 2. So the greatest value of y is equal to 2 minus x squared is 2. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to this channel for more videos. We have now learned how to use the graph of a quadratic function to find the maximum or the minimum value of the function. In the next video, we are going to learn how to use the graph of a quadratic function to find the equation of the line of symmetry. Bye bye.